many people have lots of expectations from the budget this year. We have a new government in power which has come in with the promise of a growth agenda. So they have a responsibility both to the economy as well as to the common man. So they will have to do a balancing act of giving in to some populist measures as well as doing some fundamentals that will correct the negative sentiment in the economy currently. So I expect this budget to be a balancing act, because we need the reforms to kick in to give the boost to the economy, as also some really some measures to make people happy. So we will see some sort of realignment in tax slabs. We will see some tinkering around with the tax rates. But what I'm really expecting from this budget is some major reforms. One of the things that has in the last 2 years really brought the country down is the retrospective amendments to tax laws. We have to get out of that image of an adversarial tax regime and try our best to come up to be considered as at least a fair revenue jurisdiction. Therefore, reforms on both the policy and administration side would be my expectations from this budget. So if you look at it, one of the things that ails this country is the fact that the number of people who should be paying taxes are not really paying taxes. It could be simply because the infrastructure to enable tax payments is not so great. It could be that people are not encouraged or motivated enough to pay taxes. So one of the things that I want to be able to see, and this is both on my wish list and what I think is good for the country, is broad basing of tax compliance through tax policy reforms that we talked about, through making it a transparent tax regime, process-oriented tax department, a tax dispute resolution process which is simple and transparent. So broad-basing tax compliance will go a long way in encouraging people to pay personal taxes in India, and that's an area that we really need to really bring in a huge growth, because over the last few years we've hardly seen any growth in personal income taxes in the country. One of the first things that the government should do is really look towards increasing the ATC limit, which is to encourage investments in long-term saving products. In fact, they could do an extra bit by encouraging people who put in money into investments which have a long gestation period. They could relook at limits which for the salary income earners, poor salary income earners, that limits haven't for medical, insurance, conveyance, meal allowances, that haven't been revised for a long time. They really need to be looked at, and in terms of market realities. The other thing that the government should be also looking at is how much of a boost it can give to the new pension scheme. Because of lacunae in the drafting of the NPS provisions in the Income Tax Act, many employers haven't been able to get people to enroll onto the NPS scheme. So the government needs to make a correction to that. So that's an alternative to Provident Fund, to an alternative to other pension products in the market. So one could see some changes around NPS in the new budget. We could also look at specific changes in the whole tax return compliance process, making it easier for people to pay taxes. So one of the things that the BJP manifesto talked about was taxing transactions, banking transactions. So I would think in this budget there would be some sort of introduction of a tax on banking transactions over a certain limit, which would, in order to to be able to have an alternative to income tax, you could see a transaction tax or an expenditure tax come in with this budget.